Disclaimer. Unapologetically Gangster. The Don Kawand Story. Book 1, subtitle, Marlboro and Coney Island. Story 49. Now, my Aunt Barbara from Langston Hughes, Brownsville, was living with us at this time. But while she was living with us, she had this nice gold ring with diamond cuts, and I constantly begged her to let me rock it one day. After pleading with her to sport the beautiful shine and promising to bring it back, she folded. Now I would like to think at this time in my life that the dudes that lived in the hood had some respect for me when I ran into my big bro life. He was bouncing across town and I wasn't up for the ride. But just like I got the ring from my Aunt Bob is how he got it from me. He begged and pleaded and promised to bring it back when I buckled. Since he promised to return the ring that evening, I let Big Bro hold it. Now in my gut, I fully understood that he was capable of anything. Everything in my soul wanted me to believe that we were tighter than him making me a victim, but I was wrong. He was no sucker, so I had no worries about anyone taking something from him. I knew it would be safe in his hands. He had my trust, but when he returned, all he had for me was a sad story. I don't even remember the Little Red Riding Hood fairy tale story he tried to sell me. Honestly, somewhere after the first word he said, I blacked out. Disbelief, heartbroken, but a grueling distaste for him had grown inside my belly. I stopped listening after he opened his mouth. It crushed me. Mostly because I had no siblings, so the boys I'd grown up with in Marlboro were like my bros. We had became family. Unlike across town, where you can hang out with someone for years and never meet their moms or know their family, we were all close. Marlboro was different than any other black neighborhood in Brooklyn. Across town, the older you get, the less you know about someone that you consider a friend, because it's a cutthroat and vicious world. The reality of someone you had a problem with pulling up at your crib was real in neighborhoods like Bed-Stuy, Brownsville, and even East New York. For example, my big bro Heath was living in a house in East New York on a side block off of Liberty Avenue, but the boy hung out in Bed-Stuy every day, and I bet my life on it that only one, maybe two people from across town had ever been to his honeycomb hideout, and I'm absolutely sure no one from Bed-Stuy knew what his mama looked like. Therefore, those that live in Marlboro, when they became a friend, became family. We argue, fight, and still drink and smoke and eat with one another. So understand when I tell you that life was like family. He was, but he violated me. Late that evening, as I put the key into my apartment door, had to put my tail between my legs and explain to my aunt how I lost something precious of hers that she trusted me with. The pain in her eyes bothered me for days. It was at that time and moment that Big Bro would be in the crosshairs of my fire at the first opportunity that presented itself. This is one of the lessons he had taught me, and when that time came, a few years later, I returned the gift of a broken heart with a red ribbon wrapped around it. This is the end of Story 49, the Don Kawand story. Unapologetically Gangster, the Don Kawand Story. Book 1, subtitle, Marlboro and Coney Island. Story 50. Now I'm going to skip ahead to when I was much older for this gangster move. One Big Bro life would never forget. A move that put me on another level. During my senior year in high school, I was attending Lincoln High School after being kicked out of Lafayette for my unruly antics. After getting off the city bus on the other side of the projects, I had to stroll through Marlboro in order to get to my crib. I'm crossing West 11th Street, and as I'm stepping up on the curb to my side of the projects in front of 2250 West 11th Street, aka Building 3, I'm just minding my business. But that's when the opportunity fell into my lap. I see life coming out of a crib on the first floor that a kid named Sputnik lived in. Yeah, Sputnik, that was his name. Cool dude, but he was out there. His old apartment could be seen in the infamous movie entitled American Gangster, the one starring Denzel Washington and Russell Crowe. The apartment is shown early in the movie with the boy overdosing, and there's an angry crowd when Russell Crowe brings him out on a gurney. True facts. Sputnik's apartment would also become infamous in Marlboro for what I'd call an Ocean's 11 heist, but on a smaller scale. I'ma return to that later, but back to breaking Big Bro's heart. Big Bro life is coming down a ramp simultaneously as I'm about to enter the lobby of the building.
Hey, okay, hold this for me. I'm gonna get it from you later.
He said before pulling out of his waistline a beautiful all-black plastic Glock 9mm, which was just hitting the streets. The little machine was brand spanking new when I took it out of his hand and threw it into my knapsack with the books. Now, like I explained earlier, the high-rises have an entrance in the front of the building and one directly in the back. In between the two entrances is the lobby, where there are 2 elevators and all the mailboxes. Now, by the time I took the 10-foot walk through the lobby to the back of the building, I knew that Big Bro would never see it again. Opportunity, my boy. Something he drilled in me during our train rides back and forth from across town. Always pay attention to the opportunity, he used to tell me. I must have been about 17 when I bounced through the hallway and made the decision to never return the Glock back to life. Instead of going home, I headed straight to the 13th floor in 30 Rock to go check my boy Abe. We were tight at this time in my life, and although I went to get his approval, had no intentions of giving the Glock back. He just needed to know what I was getting him into, because at this time in life, if I had a problem, Abe had a problem. See, Big Bro life was about that business. His brother Malik was about that street business. And they were both close with iGod and Everlasting, and both of them brothers were definitely about that gunplay. Yes, I put my hand in a boiling pot of water, but so what? That was my young boy's attitude. Now back to me knocking on Abe's door this revengeful afternoon to explain what was on my mind. I remember him opening up the door and being on the telephone. And when I stepped into his apartment, I whispered, "Yo, look what I got." I then dug into the knapsack and showed him the plastic Glock.
Yo, what you doing with that face shit?
He asked. If I had not examined it in the elevator, I would have thought the same exact thing, because it had the appearance of something out of a toy store. But it was real as the nose on my face. He was doubting it until I popped out the clip and flashed a fully loaded magazine on him. My homie eyes bucked wide open, and he immediately got up off the jack and wanted to examine the brand new Glock. Now, we had a couple of guns, but this one was bigger than anything we had. After explaining how I got my hands on it and my intentions on keeping it, he was all in on going to war with anybody. That was all I needed to hear. The decision was final. Big Bro life would never see the Glock ever again. The wolf in me had emerged. Therefore, I laid low in the woods for a man that once told me the Little Red Riding Hood fairy tale years earlier. This is the end of Story 50, the Don Kawand story. Unapologetically Gangster, the Don Kawand story. Book 1, subtitle, Marlboro and Coney Island, Story 51. Okay, now check out how the universe operates. After leaving Abe's crib, I'm rushing to my building and runs into another cat from 30 Rock.
7:30, your comrade in arms.
A cool dude that was about that gangster, but I'ma get into him a little more later. He was coming from picking up his younger sister from school. I convinced him to come with me up to the crib to show off the new Glock. While we were in my bedroom, I excitedly pulled out the Glock, and as I pulled it out of the knapsack, his eyes are wide open, just like Abe's. And just like Abe, he thought it was fake. After flashing a fully loaded clip, I went to put it back into the Glock, and the gun went off. It startled the hell out of us, and thank God I didn't kill nobody by accident. What I didn't know then, but found out later, is that the Glock had a hairpin trigger. It was nothing to be played with. I quickly tucked the Glock up underneath my mattress. Then I quickly rushed out of the crib. But the accident gave me a story to spin whenever I ran into Big Bro Life. Now 730 lived in 30 Rock as well, and was all in with going to war on my behalf. I knew Gamor would be all in. Therefore, it was only one other person that I needed to share my situation with, and that was my big bro Heath. Therefore, I headed straight to the N train station. On my way to the N train station, I ran into Big Bro Life. I told him the truth about the misfire and that I ran out of the crib. And I'm sure that as much as he wanted to believe me, he had that same ugly feeling in his gut that I had when he told me he didn't have my aunt's gold ring. A bitter taste of disbelief. Yeah, Big Bro had no choice but to accept it at the time as I headed to Bed-Stuy to make sure that someone else knew what was going on. Later on that night in Marlboro, I gave Big Bro the story that I had rehearsed all the way home. He had to accept the story of Mama Love finding the Glock and throwing it into the trash. That was my story, and I stuck with it until today. Sorry, Big Bro, but what comes around goes around, and I was already prepared for the fallout. But later on that night, Big Bro would come for me while walking my German Shepherd named King around the building. Things got crazy. I was coming around in front of my building when I noticed Big Bro creeping in all black with the fitted New York Yankees hat pulled to his eyebrows. He was stepping quickly toward me, and once he was a few feet in front of me, he barked out.
Yo, K, where my joint at? You trying to play me like some sucker?
His aggressive tone made King bark and snarl at him, and the boy pulled out a .357 Magnum, long. Startled me. I was holding the dog chain with my left hand, and my right hand was inside my sweat hood pocket when I noticed his brother Malik pulling up in the rear with 2 Glocks, one in each hand. Big Bro screamed something, and I turned King loose. King jumped at him, and Big Bro hit him with a shot. This gave me just enough time to pull out the Glock and give Big Bro 2 to the gut. He dropped the ratchet, screamed out in pain as his brother Malik began popping shots at me. We went back and forth for a moment as I made my way into my building. Once inside the building, I ran up 6 flights of steps to my apartment. Once inside the crib, I heard more shots firing before peeking out the window and noticing that Abe in 730 was banging out with Malik. I went to go back downstairs before I heard police sirens, which made me pause for a moment. I'm pacing back and forth in my living room with the gun in my hand, thinking of my next move. When the telephone rings, it was Abe. 730 was hit and on his way to the hospital. Shit had got crazy. It was at that moment I realized I created a civil war within 30 Rock, and I didn't even live in the building. After a few minutes, I tried to make my way out of the building, but the police pulled up on me, caught me slipping. They caught me with the ratchet, and all I could think about was Rikers Island as they put them bracelets on me and slid me into the back of the vehicle. Nah, that's not what really happened, although that's how I kind of imagined it. But this is the truth. The following morning, Big Bro knocked on my door and delivered me a humble pie. He was very soft-spoken, and although he knew he wasn't getting the Glock back, made me an offer that I couldn't refuse. We wouldn't go to war if I gave him a few hours. But the truth is, Big Bro couldn't put hands on me, no more than I could put hands on him. Like I told you, we was family, and that's how we rolled in Marlboro. Marlboro and Coney Island was my home as a young man. The young boys would test me every step of the way during my early days. There was a time when I was an innocent young lamb just trying to survive, where the enemy is not only outside but behind closed doors and even amongst the ones we called friends. But as a young teenager in 1986, crack cocaine would hit the streets. I will start playing with them guns full time, finding myself in multiple kill or be killed situations with some bona fide murderers from Brooklyn, the city that made me who the fuck I am, and I'm not apologizing. This is the end of Story 51, the Don Kawand story. This is also the end of Book 1, Marlboro and Coney Island. Now stay tuned for Book 2, called The Boogeyman Era. Thanks for riding it out with me. Now don't forget to subscribe, click like, and share, because somebody needs to hear this. Yo, don't forget to also drop a comment. Let me know what you think. Reach out. Promise to get back at you. 1.